Welcome back to Unirunner Video Drum Lessons. I'm Darren Mathis, and today we're going to talk about dynamics. When I talk about dynamics, I simply mean changing the volume at which you play. Dynamics are a huge musical tool to keep in mind when you're playing. If you're not thinking about dynamics as much as you're thinking about your groove or your ability to play a lick, then you might be missing out on something that really helps you convey an emotion or make a statement. When we're talking about dynamics when we're playing the drums, one of the ways I envision it is a volume knob. I try to envision my normal playing at about a 5 on this volume knob. Anything quieter than that is going to take less energy. Anything louder than 5, you're going to have to put more wrist, more arm into it. Most of your music would be played below that. If you start everything at a higher volume, you're going to have less room to work with. And besides, at a certain point your drums are going to get so loud no matter how hard you hit them. And then you'll start denting heads and breaking sticks. If you're hitting it too hard, it's not getting any louder, you're just putting undue stress on the head and you're going to dent it. And when you dent a head, it doesn't sound as good anymore because you've got these pock marks that are kind of keeping it from resonating. When you're thinking about dynamics within your song, if you're in a band, getting soft at certain parts to create dramatic effect, convey emotions, make statements, then you get louder at other parts. It's important to keep in mind that no matter what volume level you're playing at, to maintain a steady tempo. Because it can be kind of a temptation when you play softer to kind of slow down a little bit, when you get louder to speed up, so keep that in mind as well. And there are things you can do to accomplish dynamics within a band. You might all the instruments at once go from soft to loud or from loud to soft. You might also vary up dynamics by taking turns within the band or adding instruments, subtracting instruments. You know, you don't need to have all the instruments and everyone singing all at once at all times, so it's more interesting too for the listener when you vary instrumentation up that way, and that can also create dynamic effects. Most of your dynamics when you play drums is going to be achieved through your stick height. If I'm playing softly, just the fingers are going to be involved in it. If I want to play a little bit louder, maybe I bring the stick up further. If I want to get louder than that, sometimes the wrist will get a little bit more involved, and then maybe the arm. Depends on what situation you're in. I went and saw Terry Bozzio at Sioux Falls Music a while ago, and here's a guy that employs dynamics to the maximum. I mean, he'll play passages that you can just barely hear all the way to totally attacking his drum kit. And I think that's the name of his drum headline, very appropriately named Attack. But we went up and walked around the back of his kit afterwards, and his heads were just all dented up. So I know a lot of that is just for dramatic effect and kind of visual effect when he gets his arms totally into it. But for folks like me, I don't want to buy new drum heads very often. I try and keep them undented. Anytime we talk about volume, I think it's important to mention hearing protection. Probably my favorite and easiest is just to get some of these gun mufflers, and they come in different varieties as far as how many decibels they allow. Also, if I'm playing along with music, I might use these headphones that are kind of like gun mufflers. They're isolating headphones. You can hear the music. You don't have to turn the music up as loud because they're blocking out the ambient sound of your drums. You might use just simple foam earplugs like this. A while back I had some custom earplugs made. They're pretty simple. That you just inject silicone into your ear, and they have a string that pulls it out, and then they drill a hole and put lamb's wool in there. So those were pretty inexpensive, but if you're a professional musician, you probably have considered or have professionally molded earplugs that are a little more sophisticated that cost a lot more money. Also, an inexpensive way to decrease the volume is to buy damper pads. Well, I made my own that are inexpensive from old drum heads. Cut a hole in them like this and just lay them on top of the drums. It reduces the ring and volume quite a bit. You might also stuff some pillows or blankets inside your kick drum so there's just barely any air left in there, and that will really bring down the volume too. So focus on that image of the volume knob when you're playing for extended periods of time. Create your medium volume, or play at your medium volume, but then bring it down from there, so you have room to work yourself back up and work within that dynamic range rather than really having to push yourself to create more volume, because that's going to reduce your strain on yourself and your equipment over time. That's just one idea. One of the main reasons for playing drums is kind of that release. Take at it however you want, but keep in mind dynamics. Keep it interesting for you and the listener.
Congratulations to Ian Rutherford, who was selected at random using a random number generator at random.org. He correctly answered the trivia question from last week. Was one of the reasons I like to use traditional grip? And he said because it looks cool, and that is actually one of the reasons. Thanks to all those who sent responses, and Ian, I'll send you a copy of Drum Arrangement Duets from Hamar Percussion Publications. You've been watching Unirunner Video Drum Lessons, and this podcast has been sponsored by Renato Ibarra. Some of the music from this podcast came from the Pod Show PodSafe Music Network, including the song Up and Go by Rory. Check it out at music.podshow.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please consider supporting it. You can do that 3 different ways. 2 are absolutely free. One, you can go to www.unirunner.com, click on the subscribe with iTunes video button on the left. That'll take you to the music store, and then once you're there, hit the subscribe button. Also, while you're there at the iTunes Music Store, you could write a review, which is helpful for those who are looking for drum-related podcasts. Also, if you'd like to support the podcast monetarily, you can visit www.unirunner.com/donations. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week. Until then, keep practicing, and God bless.